Hi, I will be presenting Chapter 5, Teaching Academic Language Through Curriculum from Christina Selig's book, English Language Learners Day by Day, K-6. Do you automatically think about the specific language structures you will be teaching your students? If your answer is yes, you're way ahead of the game. Remember the days when teachers taught language in isolation? Many of us grew up learning language this way, not making connections with the other content areas. Nowadays, current research is pointing us to a different and more meaningful direction. If we want ELLs to learn all the content objectives in their grade level curriculum, we have to be prepared to teach the language to carry out those objectives. What vocabulary will they need to understand a particular topic? What language structures will they need to express their learning? This language is something we always take for granted as proficient English speakers, readers, and writers. We set our sights on what we want students to accomplish as learners, overlooking the language they'll need to reach these goals. In this chapter, I will discuss how to develop language objectives from content objectives on your curriculum, and how to teach ELLs the language structures and academic vocabulary they'll need to be successful with the curriculum. When preparing to teach each unit of study, we need to think about what language objectives we'll need to have from the different content objectives. We need to ask ourselves these questions. What is the content objective I'm going to teach? What learning activities will I have my ELLs do to meet that content objective? And for those learning activities, what are the most important language structures and vocabulary my ELLs will need to understand and use? We continue discussing the language structures, which are the grammatical building blocks of language that we use to form sentences and connect sentences together to make paragraphs or longer texts. If you have never thought about using language in this way, you might feel uncomfortable trying to figure out what language structures your ELLs will need to use. It helps to think about what your ELLs will be doing with the language during a learning activity, the language function. Will your ELLs be describing something? They will need a variety of adjectives. What will they be questioning? They will need to know how to ask questions in a particular tense. Explaining? They'll need to use regular and irregular past tense verbs and a variety of conjunctions. For each of your content objectives, you'll also need to determine what academic vocabulary your ELLs will need to learn. Academic vocabulary is separated into two types: content-specific words and general academic words. Content-specific words are used in only one particular subject area, whereas general academic words are used in many different subject areas. Ultimately, the best way for ELLs to develop high level of general academic vocabulary is through intensive reading. Once you're aware of the language structures ELLs need to use for a particular learning activity, you can plan how you will explicitly model them during instruction. Modeling language structures make it possible for ELLs to be highly productive during a learning activity. Here's some strategies you might find useful in your classroom. Reading workshop. When teaching ELLs different reading comprehension strategies, they'll need to use certain language structures to express their thinking. When readers ask themselves questions before they read, while they're reading, and after they read, they're actively thinking about their text and making sure they understand it. The best way to help ELLs with these complicated language structures is to explicitly model them within a meaningful content. At CIPLC, we use Daily 5 and Café as part of a literacy program. One of the many advantages of these resources have is step-by-step instruction and the modeling when introducing each strategy, helping all students to feel more confident in their reading process. Writing workshop. During this activity, we can use the mini lessons to introduce specific language structures. In grade 1, we use the Writer's Workshop by Lucy Calkins as well as 6 Raised Plus 1. My partner Hannah and I created a writing menu called Voices, based on the Café reading menu but using specific writing strategies. On the Voices menu, the students can choose the strategy to work on after comparing with their teacher. Other activities that we can find are word study, cloze activity, lift a sentence from a text, and sentence scramble. We can use share reading as a time to point out language structures that often make a text confusing for ELLs. While reading a text, ELL may not recognize words that refer to something already mentioned. These references could be personal pronouns, possessive pronouns, possessive adjectives, demonstrative pronouns, and definite pronouns. Conjunctions are words that connect one part of the sentence with another, or show a relationship between different parts of a sentence. Transition words are used to show relationships between sentences and between paragraphs, such as first, next, then. If ELLs don't understand the meaning of these elements, they won't be able to understand the relationship between ideas throughout a text. Passive voice. It can be confusing for ELLs because it does not clearly state who or what is doing the action. Learning a word means understanding its meaning, understanding how it relates to other words or concepts, and knowing how to use it in the context of a sentence. The same vocabulary practices that help ELLs learn new words also help English proficient students, so we can use these activities in any classroom setting. While introducing vocabulary, you might want to try some of these activities. Pre-reading book talk. Looking at the cover of the book and have a conversation with your students, have them talk with a partner about what they think. When learning English, ELLs are able to recognize many words, receptive language, that they don't currently use when they speak in the productive language. Pre-reading vocabulary predictions. Posting a short list of content-specific and academic and general academic words on the board. After showing the words to your ELLs, show the cover of the book and allow them to decide which words they think they will find in the text. Collaborate content area activity. Have ELLs discuss what they already know about a specific topic. Listening to their discussions will tell you what vocabulary your ELLs are able to use and what background knowledge they have. Another activity is as content area, word or picture sort. Explicit instruction of vocabulary. Marzano and Pickering have an effective step-by-step system for developing ELL's understanding of a new word. Number 1, when explaining the meaning of a new word or words, connect to what you have learned about ELL's background knowledge, draw pictures, and use cognates. Number 2, students can work in pairs and have the discussion sharing their previous knowledge. And number 3, students need to create their own pictorial representation to make sure they really understand the word. Practicing understanding vocabulary. Once ELLs have been introduced to the context-specific vocabulary, they need to practice the words multiple times in meaningful contents. ELLs rely on their practice to solidify their understanding of the words and incorporate the words as part of their speaking and writing. They need to make connections between these words and other academic vocabulary. There are specific ways your ELLs use the vocabulary during content area instruction. I will focus on these two, tallying words and webs. When you're tallying words, in our classroom, we select 2 or 3 titles during the week and make a copy of the cover of the book. Then we select the vocabulary words that we want the children to learn. Write them in a sticky note and place them on the little copy. Every time the words get used in any form, we make a check mark and keep tally of its usage. This seems to motivate children to use the word more times. Webs. This is one of my favorite graphic organizers. I find that using webs is an effective way to help ELLs extend the vocabulary base related to a particular word. It is also great for brainstorming and making connections. Final thoughts. When you develop language objectives, you make language structure a meaningful part of your ELL's learning. Research shows that many ELLs don't recognize how their native language can help them in learning English. And emphasizing language structures and academic vocabulary every day during instruction is critical for ELLs to experience success in the content areas and to improve their literacy skills in English. Thank you for listening.